Hello and welcome to this latest installment of Tones of the Hammer. If you're new here, we talk about Hamilton, the surrounding areas, and talk to local musicians, creatives, actors, film people. And today, this is a special one indeed, because we've got a local Hamilton legend with me today, who is a Juno winner. He's an award-winning songwriter and just all-round cool dude. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Tomi Swick.
Hello, Daniel.
How's it going, mate? Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
I know you're a busy dude, so everybody's so busy that comes on this
crazy.
So thanks for joining us, Tomi. How's things? How's life going?
It's pretty good, man. I spend my time between gigs here in the Southern Ontario and wherever, and then up in my land up north that I've been working on.
Yes, I see the photos you share of that little cabin. It's beautiful up there, right?
It's pretty wild, man.
It's mad in this heat at the minute, I can imagine.
Mad in this heat, mad with the bugs.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, man. The catharsis of working up there on the land that you own. And
I was going to say, a great place for songwriting, I imagine.
Definitely. It's a good place for songwriting. It's a good place for introspection. It's a good place for just to kind of, find your center again, you know?
Sick. So cool, man. Well, we'll get into songwriting eventually.
Yep. But
Tomi, I'm pretty new to Hamilton. You know, you were actually one of the first artists I met. I think within 7 days of me landing in Canada, you were the first artist that
I'm trying to think. Were we doing pre-pro for the record right away?
Yes,
that's
you
what it
were.
was. Yes,
yeah, coming in rehearsing, and I just pretended like I knew what I was doing here in the studio.
You did a great job with us, man.
Good. I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah. But seeing as for anybody new watching this, Tomi, then tell us about yourself, because even for me, actually, I know we've hung out a few times in the studio, outside the studio.
Yeah.
Where did your career start as a songwriter and artist? Where did it all kick off?
I'll try to Cole's notes it. So I'm born.
Take as long as you want, mate.
Born here in Hamilton. I was born up on the mountain, but then I moved downtown when I was 14, sorry. And I switched from a school in the mountain down to Cathedral downtown. And I lived in the East End, Barton and Gage, like real, pretty tough East End. And I loved it, man. My friends were great. It was the old Hamilton, rough and tumble Hamilton.
Yes,
it was a different kind of time.
The legends that we hear about.
Yeah. And I loved that time. I loved everything that instilled in me about the city and about myself and the world around me. It allowed me to go all over the world and feel safe because I learned so much here. You know?
I can imagine.
But I always played music. My family is from Scotland, and music was always a big part of my family, and I played different instruments growing up. But when I was 13, my mom got me a guitar, and that's when I started, really batting away at songs. And the first song I ever really wrote was I used to go to Highland Games every year.
Oh, right, I've heard
being
about
Scottish.
them,
I love it. And I wrote a song called Bonnie Scotland, What I've Never Been. And my goal was to play it at the Highland Games at that bar.
Yeah.
But I was too young to get in. They wouldn't let me in. So I just dejectedly walked around the campground. Yeah. And there was this older group of people, and they saw me, 13-year-old kid, walking around with a guitar, 14. And they said, "Hey, kid, come over." And I went and played with them. They ended up being a whole bunch of Wiccan, witch. Wiccan, whatever. They practice that stuff.
All that weird British, Scottish, whatever stuff,
But they were cool, and they were like, "You've got an old soul," and all that stuff. And they just let me play away, and I got to play Bonnie Scotland when I've never been. And that was really the start of me playing and writing songs. And then I went on from there. There's a film, he runs the film festival, my brother-in-law, Nathan Fleet, if you know him at all. Great musician, great filmmaker. Him and my brother-in-law Marty, they let me play rhythm guitar and sing backup in their band, which was called Park Row back time, which was named after a street in the East End. And so that's how I really started cutting my teeth. And I was a jock. Like I was a jock who played guitar. I wasn't that guy in school that thought he was going to be a musician. Yeah. I never had those. I loved it, but I never thought I was good enough. I never thought I'd be into it. And I was going to go to school for anthropology or fisheries and wildlife. Right. That's what
I would have never looked at Tomi Swick and thought that.
Dude, I was a big book nerd on history, and especially Indigenous history and stuff. And so I was really into it. And I was a football player working on a football scholarship. And then I played a bunch of sports, but then I got hurt really badly. And during that time, I realized that dream was dashed. And, we weren't a rich family, so I didn't know about how I was going to deal with university or any of that kind of stuff. And I enlisted in the Army.
Right.
And I was still injured, so I couldn't do all the Army. So I'd previously been a cadet when I was younger. And then in that time while I was injured and I couldn't do the physical for the Army, I ended up joining the cast of Jesus Christ Superstar at the Tivoli Theater in Hamilton. And through that, I was not an actor or a dancer. Obviously, I was a big ogre doing it. But I through that, the guys in the pit band heard me sing, and we all became buddies. And the one guy asked me to try out for his band, and I did. And that was a band called Nimbus, which became Red Echo, and that was the start of me really getting into it.
Oh, great!
And then once I was, healed up enough to maybe go back to the army and finish my physical and go into the army, I was like, I think I'm going to stick with this music thing. And I stuck with the music, and that's just been doing that ever since.
Sick, dude. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's where it all started, I guess, because you've had quite an illustrious career already, right?
You know, a lot of peaks and valleys, man. It's been a roller coaster, and there's been things I loved about it, things I hated about it so far. And I'm 44. I just turned 44, and I've been doing this full time pretty much since I was about 21.
Yeah,
even earlier, but that was really when it kind of really started. And aside from I lost my voice for a few years and stuff. That's all I've been doing, really.
Yeah,
and it's given me a great life. I've had a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great experiences, and now I feel like an old salt in it. And I got some stories, and I got some war wounds, but I also got some great triumphs.
Totally. Well, let's. I mean, we got so much time here on Tones Down, and I want to hear so many stories.
Yeah,
so we've just heard about like young Tommy and stuff, getting into music and that. So when did music start becoming something where it's like, it's the next stage? You're not playing with, you're not playing in just any old kind of bar and stuff anymore. You've been signed to record labels and big record labels as well.
So the first band, Nimbus, which became Red Echo, that band, we were kind of in the 90s drop D rock kind of stuff, and we loved bands like Finger Eleven. Rock.
That should be a genre on
it was, man. Was it? It totally was around.
Yeah.
And it was like, bands from Canadian bands that we looked up to were like Big Wreck, who were obviously Ian Thornley's, in my opinion, the best ever.
Yeah.
Vocal and guitar player. But it was bands like Big Wreck, bands like I Mother Earth, bands like Finger Eleven, even Our Lady Peace. Like those bands were so huge.
Yeah.
And we looked up them so much, and so we were kind of doing that kind of thing. And then we got in with Denise Donlin at Sony, and a couple of Bernie Breen we met with, who was the Tragic Hips manager and stuff. And at this point I was 18, 19, and
exciting time to be
exciting time, yeah. Stuff, right? We were playing and going back and forth in Hamilton, Toronto, and stuff, and doing pretty good gigs. But then they wanted us to add rap to the band. And at that point, we'd been together a couple of years, and we weren't sure what was going to go on. And me and another member were just kind of like, "Oh, hell no, I don't want to do that. That's not what I just don't do it." And one of the guys went off to university, and I went off just to do my own thing. And that was the first taste of meeting those kind of people, and that was when I was like 18, 19. And then for the next few years, I just wrote songs and played around, and I didn't really play that much, actually. I just wrote a lot until I started going to a couple open mic nights after a girlfriend of mine at the time was kind of like, "What are you doing? You're writing all these songs. Like, why don't you go play for somebody?"
Not be just a bedroom musician.
Yeah. And I was just nervous, and I was using a little karaoke machine to record my songs, and I wasn't doing a lot of stuff. And so then I started going out to a couple open mic nights, and through those open mic nights, I started getting gigs, and people started being like, "Oh, this guy's decent." Because I knew a bunch of people from when I was playing in that band before, but I wasn't like immersed in the scene or whatever. Yeah. So then once I started doing like Tomi Swick stuff, a lot of doors started opening, and that was kind of when I was like 23, 24. And shortly after that, I started getting gigs in Toronto, and then meeting record label execs and stuff like that. And
cool. So yeah, you kind of came into your own, because we had on a few episodes ago, we had sessions with John Fielding and Brandon were on with us. And we were just talking about this a second ago, the idea of the hard rock scene that used to be around in Hamilton.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you doing your acoustic kind of stuff.
It was weird because I've said this before, like Hamilton wanted a rock hero or a punk hero. Like it's always been a thing here. And I was never that guy. I was never into punk music. I like rock and roll. I like hard rock. I like rock and roll, but I was never that guy. I loved Paul Simon, and my sister loved James Taylor. So I loved James Taylor. And then like, the Beatles and stuff like that. And so when I met Andrew McTaggart, who played with me for years, and he's gone on to play with tons of people, Andrew really got me into the Beatles. I liked the Beatles before, but then I got heavy into the Beatles, and I got way more into those kind of writers. Like, I know everyone loves Lennon, and I love Lennon too, but I loved McCartney.
Yeah, I'm a McCartney guy.
I'm a McCartney guy. Yeah. And so I loved McCartney, and then Paul Simon and James Taylor and all those kind of people. And then that would, further on in life lead me to love like Ray LaMontagne and Chris Stapleton and, you know, all that kind of stuff mixed with stuff like Sam Cooke and Otis Redding.
Oh, I love it.
But being a white kid from Hamilton that loved rock music, it was funny because the first stuff I was doing was very reminiscent of like Travis from Scotland.
Yeah.
I was a huge Travis fan.
Yeah.
So, and Radiohead and bands like that. So the first stuff I was doing was kind of a mix between Travis and like Jeff Buckley. I was really heavy into that. Before I got into a bit more Americana, a bit more into rootsy stuff, that's really where I was. And so when I came out with my first record, it was funny because I was doing well, but I definitely wasn't like the hero that Hamilton wanted. You know, they had guys like Tom Wilson and guys like from Crowbar and then Daniel Lanois and all these awesome people before me.
Kind of edgy, kind of like
yeah.
stuff,
And here I'm playing love songs, you know, and I'm a big kind of gnarly dude.
Yeah.
So it was very funny, like the dichotomy of me being my personality and then out of my mouth would come these pretty songs. It was very weird. It was a weird time.
That's where all the chicks come from then. Gnarly mixed with love songs, right?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. No luck with that. But I didn't feel like a guy that Hamilton really wanted, even though I had a ton of support. I wasn't the kind of guy that they wanted to be the image of Hamilton. Yeah. And so that kind of pissed me off because I felt like my personality was Hamilton. I was extremely East End Hamilton kind of dude. So it was weird. It was a weird time, but I mean, I rode that wave and it was a great time. I got a lot of crazy opportunities out of it. And
because I know you've mentioned before, it took you to the UK working with big names in the UK, right? And, you know, and again, I mentioned on the intro, you know, awards and stuff that you've won for songwriting and your albums and your music and stuff. Tell us a bit about your time in the UK. Because I remember when you told me about this, there was some big names.
So I did my first record here in Canada. My first record with Warner Brothers, with a guy named Ron Lapata, who was in a band called Jack Soul, fantastic Canadian band. Hayden Neal, the singer, who sadly passed away, was from Hamilton. So there's a lot of connections, right? There's always somebody from Hamilton in every big band. It's crazy. But so I did my first record here with crazy musicians, great Canadian musicians, Davide Lorenzo, all these different guys, and Andrew, and a bunch of musicians. And then the second record, I was always fighting the pop thing, and I think they wanted me to be. Well, they took me to meet Ed Sheeran afterwards because they talked about me touring with him. They thought about me touring with David Gray, which I was dying for. They talked about me touring with Ray LaMontagne, which I was dying for. Yeah. And I lost all of those tours because they wanted a female opener. But I was so close to getting them, and that killed me. But the second record, I was trying to go. I wanted to go more rocky, I wanted to be more of. Because the first record is softer. It's definitely softer and more pop polish, which is fine. But it was not exactly who I was, you know. And I can listen to that record now and appreciate it for the time and for what my influences were and the work we did. But it's never sat right with me totally. And then the second record, I was like, I'm gonna be gnarlier on this record, and I was trying to bring in a bit more U2, a bit more Kings of Leon, a bit more stuff like that to get grit out because I have a raspy voice. Yeah, totally. But on the first record, you'd almost never know it. Right. I naturally have normally a really raspy voice, and so the second record, I went over there and I worked with Chris Potter, who did the Verve, McCartney, Stones, all that stuff, and then I had guys from Richard Ashcroft's band, I had guys from Ocean Color Scene, I had guys from Ian Brown's band, like crazy players, musicians. So
especially at the time, they were in the height at that sort of time.
It was just after all of that, right? Yeah. It was just after all that. Yeah. So it was a dream come true. And what I was expecting to do was to go to England, because first we tried to get, we talked about Daniel Lanois doing the second record.
That'd have been such a Hamilton kind of record thing,
but right? he was doing somebody crazy. And then we talked about Ethan Johns because he had done all the Ray LaMontagne stuff, and I loved it. And he did. Who else did he do? He did somebody else crazy. Tons of other crazy people. And there's a Hamilton connection too because his wife was from Hamilton. Ah, okay. So I was trying to do either of those. Yeah. And then they were both booked. One was doing Tom Jones, and one was doing some crazy thing. So I had no chance. And then Chris Potter came up, and I was like, "Oh, the Verve! Holy shit! Yeah, I love the Verve. Let's do it." Talked to Chris. We made it work, and he was awesome to work with. And so I flew over and he put together the band for me, which is Damon Minchella from Ocean Color Scene. He played with The Who, he played with Oasis, he played with all those guys. I had Steve White, I had Jeff Dugmore, I can't remember everybody's name. I'm brain dead.
Yeah,
but then we had
so many people.
I had oh my God, he's from the Gorillaz. He plays in Gorillaz. Jeff. I can't remember.
I don't. Yeah, I
plays guitar in Gorillaz.
Yeah.
Anyways, so all these crazy musicians. It was a crazy time, and I lived in England for like 3.5 months. Did the record, and then I ended up doing a song with Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son on that. And so all this crazy stuff, it was amazing. And then I came home, and the record didn't come out for another year after that. We were going back and forth with mixes and having problems, and my label was like what image they wanted me to have. And I kept trying to push it to be a little more gritty. Yeah. And it just wasn't working. And literally we did a soft release of the record, and I was like, let me go. Yeah. Thank you for everything, but this is not working. It's not working for you. It's not working for me. And
so you told Warner to let you go, right?
I said, please just let me go. Oh, yeah. Because it wasn't benefiting us at all. Like, we weren't jiving. What they wanted me to be, I wasn't. Yeah. And the reality of it was clear to everybody. Yeah. And I thought we were just, wasting each other's time. And it was a crazy opportunity. I'm not shitting on it, because I was lucky to have the opportunity. I'm some donkey from Hamilton getting all these crazy things, right? But then it just wasn't working out, and then I was pretty wild, so I was a hardcore partier then. Yeah. And so I was having vocal problems, and I ended up, like I said, losing my voice for 3 years in between those two records. So that was a crazy experience working with all those great musicians, and it was humbling, really. But the aftermath of like having, which I thought were some good songs on that record for sure, that I thought would have done really well, and people were saying we're going to do well. It just didn't jive with the whole situation, and my management was a mess, and my agency was back and forth, and it just got to the point where it just wasn't working.
Just doesn't work sometimes.
Doesn't work sometimes, and there was parts of Reputation where it was like I was hard to deal with, but it wasn't that I was hard. I went out and did the gigs, I did everything, but I was wild. Yeah. And if somebody pissed me off, I would say fuck you. Yeah. And I didn't care who it was. Yeah. And you kind of have to be a bit of a yes man, unless if you're making millions of dollars. Yeah. You don't have to be a yes man. Yeah. But if you're not, you kind of have to be a yes man.
Yeah. I imagine these exec labels like to control a lot.
And I would always have this animosity where it's like, I'm the guy creating music. Why are you talking to me about music?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And they hate that attitude, right? But it's just kind of like, but isn't that the truth?
Yeah. And to them, I suppose to them, it's kind of, they're looking at the business side of things and following trends. And
for them, you work for them. Yeah. For us, you work for us.
There's no business without the artist, right?
And like I said, if you're making tons of money, then you can be like that. But if you're not, you can't. And so I wasn't, and I couldn't. Yeah. And so, as you get older, you kind of realize those things where, I understand my part in the failures of it. But I also knew their part in the failures of it. It was just a miscommunication and a misidentification of what I was, really. Yeah. And so crazy opportunities, but then that led to me walking away, and I kind of stepped out of it for a while after that. Yeah.
Wow. Is Tomi Swick like Hamilton's gnarliest artist telling Warner to stuff yourself? That's the question.
I don't know. Stupidest, maybe.
No, who knows? Who knows, dude? Well, as long as, like you say, if it's not happy, and especially when it comes to songwriting and stuff, Tommy, be it an artist, if you're not comfortable in your own skin kind of doing, what's the point, right?
And like I said earlier, like there's people who grow up and they're in middle school, high school, and they're like, I'm going to be a musician. Yeah. I'm going to be a musician. They've got the idea of themselves. They know who they love. They know who they want to emulate or what they want to pull from who they love. I didn't have that. Yeah. I played music, but I was a jock donkey who played music and, happened to be able to do it okay. So I didn't even know what I was trying to be. I didn't even know what I was going to be. I just wrote all these schizophrenic kind of songs all over the place. Rock, pop, roots,
which
folk,
is a sign of a songwriter as well, rather than it was talent.
It was weird because it might have been better for me to go into the songwriting world more than trying to be an artist. Yeah. But I just, they were like, no, you're a songwriting artist. Because I could sing, because I could play. They were like, no, we're going to go with this. And like I said, it was crazy good opportunities, but it was also, it was a lot for me. I didn't know what I was doing. A learning curve, right? Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. And I made a lot of mistakes. And I also...
And it's a young age to go into that kind of thing, too.
Totally. And I was learning what I was. And it's funny because as a kid, I used to always sing Little Richard and like soul kind of stuff. I love that. But when I got older, I was this big white donkey from Canada. So singing soulfully, I felt embarrassed. So I would never do it. Yeah. But then...
While all the other guys are listening to hard rock and stuff. Totally. Sam Cooke,
Well, yeah. And like...
I relate to that.
It was funny. So, I mean, what bridged the gap for me with soul as I got older and more comfortable in my skin was guys like Van Morrison and stuff like that in the band and all that stuff where I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not trying to rip off, black culture. I'm not trying to be this. I just am what I am. And that whole blue-eyed soul thing is a real thing. And there's people who do it and they do it honestly.
Yeah.
And when I started realizing that, I started feeling more comfortable with it. So on my third record, the Yukon Motel, I'd gone way more rootsy, and I was working with a guy from Hamilton who was like Dave King, who was a great producer, great drummer, awesome guy. He is such a great guy, but he was so good to me.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, dude, he owned a barn, a big, beautiful studio at the time. And he was like, just come out and let's find where you are.
Who you are, yeah.
And that record came out way more rootsy, almost country. And I've never been a new country guy. I love old country. I grew up with lots of old country in my life, but I never was like country, like I never was into new country.
Yeah.
It's never, still not my thing at all. I like people like Stapleton. I like people like,
Johnny Cash is my hero.
Johnny Cash, of course. Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson.
That more kind of raw.
That I love. The outlaw country stuff.
That's it.
But when it got to, and even like Garth Brooks and stuff like that, and what's his name? I'm gonna love you forever. I can't remember his name. Oh my god. But but when it got to new country, kind of like bro country and that stuff, I just wasn't into it at all. And so the record came out. That record came out. It was funny because here I am in another situation where I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of rootsy. I'm kind of country. I'm kind of poppy. I'm kind of rocky, but I'm none of them.
Yeah. And
so for radio and stuff, that record got put on the Long Polaris Prize and lots of acclaim and lots of good accolades. People were into it, but just did nothing. Radio was working. And by then I had left Warner Brothers and went with Slate Music. And if you don't know Gary Slate, he's a monster in Canadian entertainment forever. And Derek Ross, they took me in and they were great home for me. They were always friends to me throughout my whole career, ups and downs. They're always good to me. And so I did that record with them and with Dave King. And, that opened up a bunch of doors again for me and gave me some good news clips and stuff like that, but still it didn't do a ton. And so now I'm on my fourth record, solo record, and I've settled way more into the kind of the soul roots thing where I finally feel very comfortable. I felt comfortable on the last record. I was getting there, and now I feel totally in my skin of that, and I don't feel weird about it. But I still write poppy songs. I still write super heavy rock songs. I still write I like ballads. I write all over the place. So now where I'm at now, I just try to where do I fit most of the time, and that seems to be in the Ray LaMontagne, Van Morrison, even Nathaniel Rateliff, Chris Stapleton, in that kind of world. And that's where I feel. I'm not saying I'm as good as any of them, but I feel like that's where I fit.
To differ, mate. We mentioned just then, you talked about being an artist and the difference. So do you see yourself now as more of a songwriter rather than an artist, or? Kind of
both. I mean, I've had so many vocal problems. I just had surgery again. This is my second surgery. I might have to have a third surgery. And as you know, like I'm finishing a record right now that we'll get into that story.
Totally.
So I started working right near where we are in Hamilton. There's Six Nations Native Indigenous reservation up there. And there's a family, the Hill family and the Montour family, and they're well-known, very powerful families up there. And through Lauren Lieberman, who used to run one of the Hamilton festivals, and he ran the Tivoli Theater originally back when I was 18, got me in the door with them. And for the last 6-7 years, I became like their house band, me and the guys I play with, and played tons of gigs and did all this great stuff with them. And they own Jukasa Studio, which is a killer studio out in the res.
Monster place.
Monster. It's amazing. Yeah. And Darren Majorowski runs it now, but Nick Blagoni ran it and Rob Lamothe ran it.
Who helped set up Halo as well, Nick Blagoni.
Great dudes. Oh yeah, Marconi. Yeah. And so basically, I'd had all these. I had hundreds of songs, and it'd been a while. It's been 7, almost 8 years since my last record. Yeah. And it's funny because I just had no interest in doing more. It kind of ebbs and flows with the business, right? I'm just
you've got to go. There's no point forcing something out. It'll be just crap.
But I had all these songs, and I had tons of demos, and I had tons of songs that were fully produced songs from old records that didn't make it or whatever. And so I started just throwing them up on SoundCloud just to kind of like give them a life. It's like painting a picture and putting it in the basement and no one ever seeing it. And I thought, well, hell, I don't care about the monetary reward or anything. I just put them up, let somebody hear them. If one person hears them, it's fine. So I started putting all these songs up, And then my publisher, Warner Chappell, got in touch with me, and they were like, "These songs are great. Like, where are these?" I was like, "You've had them for like 10 years. They've all been there. Like, do you have more?" And I said, "I've got tons more."
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Are you going to do any recording soon?" And I thought about it, and so I approached the guys who own Jukasa, Kenny Hill, who sadly passed away, but his son Ryan Burnham has it now, and I said to him and his buddy Josh, who kind of is one of his right hand man. I was like, "Guys, would you give me a friend deal to go? It's an expensive place. Would you give me a friend's deal to go in there and just kind of record a couple songs for my publisher?" And they were like, "Sure, go talk to Darren and see what you guys come up with." So I went and met with Darren, and he was like, "Okay." I played him a bunch of stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, okay, let me talk to them." And then he called me a couple days later, and he's like, "Okay, we're good to go." And I was like, "Well, tell me what I'm gonna have to pay and all this kind of stuff." And he was like, "No, green light." They said, "Just go ahead."
Nice.
And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like,
can't turn that down, right?
If anyone doesn't know, like, that's a huge gift. It's a crazy gift for a musician. And so then I was like, well, I wasn't ready to do a record. I was only going to do a few songs for a publisher, the ones that I thought might have opportunities for sync or for someone else to do them or something. And then it turned out we were like, okay, we're doing a whole record. So then that's when when I met you, I was just kind of figuring out what I was going to do. And so that's where I'm at now, but I've had surgery again. So I haven't finished it yet. I have to see about my throat still. But it's been crazy, and it's led me to this point. But yeah, that hats off absolutely to the Hill family and the Montour family and Lauren Lieberman for opening a door for me and kind of the whole res out there just kind of said, "Come on in, bud." Yeah, they've been amazing. Oh, dude.
Yeah, I've only read about it and seen the odd news article or video about it. But yeah, it looks an incredible place. And again, they're doing a great thing, for Indigenous communities.
Oh, they're killer, and the vibe out there. I love it out there. The vibe out it's
I suppose it being in that kind of space as well, surrounded by the beautiful reservation. I imagine it's great. Even that whole vibe to be in for recording.
The vibe's awesome. I don't know how much everyone out there loves being on the res because it's hard times out there for someone. There's still boil water advisories and shit like that, which is crazy. Yeah. But the people are fucking amazing. Yeah. And they've totally welcomed me with open arms, and so it's been I've been lucky in so many times in my life, and this is another good opportunity for me. So that's where I'm at right now, to get up to speed with, totally that kind of stuff in the music. But
totally, it's a total journey and a lot of lessons learned along the way, I imagine.
A lot of ups and downs, man, a lot of ups and downs. And,
totally.
The business is so different because from my time getting into not the major leagues, but getting into labels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It switched from, the whole Napster thing had happened, and they were bringing in 360 deals where they wanted your merch and all this different kind of stuff. And then from that, it switched into the Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah, world. Yeah. I was gonna say, and how are you finding, with the new album that you recorded, Tommy, how are you finding this whole new world of music? Because you talked about your career then just being back in, the just post the days of Britpop and all that. Total different, we were still buying CDs and stuff back then.
People were still buying CDs. Records were just coming back. Yeah. And, obviously, there was no Spotify or any of that stuff. That was all just starting. Yeah. That was all just happening. Yeah.
Just ideas at the time.
And so what really was weird for me, I'm an old school, I'm a grassroots guy, and it's really odd because you have people saying, okay, labels have social media coaches and stuff, right? Just like they would have for an athlete, for a media coach, but they have social media coaches, and they want you to tag what you're doing and tag your clothes and it's all about getting eyeballs and getting people to follow in. But I just couldn't do it. Yeah. I couldn't give into it. And it was not trying to be difficult. It was just that I was like, I'm not interested.
If you're not that person, you're not that person.
I'm not interested in producing my life every day for people to watch. Yeah. If I put something up, it's because if I'm cooking something, or if I'm kayaking on my lake up north, or if I'm fishing, or if I'm hunting, or if I'm fucking writing a song or working in the studio. Yeah. I'm posting it because I'm just posting something I want. Yeah. I could not sit there and produce my day for content.
Yes, and for brands
and for brands. They were like, tag your kayak so that the kayak people that like that kayak will see, and then they'll follow you. I was like, fuck that. I can't do it. And honestly, it's detrimental. Yeah. Because the more people do that, there's people who are stars. The first person that was huge from that world that I knew what was his name now? Oh, Bright Eyes.
Yeah.
You know him?
Yeah.
So he was because he sold 350,000 records through the internet.
Yeah.
And I remember Brian Byrne, the singer for My Mother Earth, the second singer for My Mother Earth, he's a good friend of mine. He called me and he was like, I want to take you to see this guy I love. And we went to see him and he told me all about him and how he sold 350,000 records without a label and everything. And that was early, early in that world. Yeah, it was crazy. And that was early in social media days. And so that was the first person I saw take off that way. And I just realized it just wasn't for me. And, you know, when you get into this game, there's people who want to be famous. There's people, Ron Sexsmith said this to me.
Yeah.
You know, he said, there's people who get out there under the lights and it's just like basking in their glory. Yeah. And other people get up there and they're always a little uncomfortable. They're always a little weird. And I'm kind of that guy. Like, I love playing for a crowd that's into what we're doing, but I hate asking someone to listen to me. Yeah. I hate begging people to listen to me. If they're not interested in me, I would way rather them not even think about me. Yeah. You know, and sometimes you get put on gigs with artists because you're like, it's a good opportunity to get in front of people. But I guess I'm just old and, you know.
Nah, man, it's a beautiful thing to see these days, you know, artistry over, you know, because there's so many, man. What are we? We're in 2024 and we're seeing it now with even in the last few months with the Hot Tour Girl or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, it's a 2-minute bit of fame that's going to come and go sort of thing. And it's just like, you know, it's so refreshing.
Well, people are famous for nothing.
Exactly. For nothingness, you know, whereas like, you know, it's beautiful to see artistry in people and, you know, putting out quality like songs and the quality work that's, you know, really means something, you know?
Yeah. You know, I mean, that's, I guess the quality of my work is you know, for the ear of the listener, but it's always been a weird thing for me, and now I'm at a point where music is catharsis for me. If I smoke a joint and I get a little anxious, I'll play guitar until I'm not anxious. Yeah. If I'm stressed about something, and you know it's fucking with my life or you know kind of my vibe, I'll start chilling, playing guitar, and before I know it, 3 hours has gone by, and I realize now that, and I knew this then, but I really know it now that. If I never played if I didn't play concerts, if I didn't make records, if I hadn't been with labels or any of that stuff, I would be doing this anyways. Yeah. I was doing it anyways. Yeah. And so it's catharsis for me. It's cathartic. For me, this is therapy. And it's funny, I've been laughing about this lately that my personality is one thing, and anyone who knows me will know that. I'm a bit of a beast around here, literally and figuratively. but I realize that seems to be where the more softer side of me comes out, or where those thoughts come out in my head, where normally I can be brash or I can be kind of rough and tumble, but in my music is where that other side comes out. Yeah. And it's I'm not trying to come out like that. It just does. So I've kind of just let myself just whatever comes out, and it is therapy, and it is calming, and it is a drug that I've needed. You know? It's not a benzo. It's nothing like that. It's like a natural drug that helps my brain relax. Yeah,
100%. I think a lot of people discover that, especially through the pandemic, the power of music to be able to like, bring home, like bring comfort and bring kind of like, even mental health stuff, it really like sorts people's heads out, right? Whether you're a listener or a creator, especially more, I think you have a deeper connection with it when you're a creator of music, but
totally. Well, that's funny because I said it earlier where I was kind of like, we're the creators, you guys. But it's funny because I know people who can't play a lick, couldn't sing a lick, don't know anything, and they love music more than I do. Yeah. It means more to them than it means to me. But they don't have the connection to it, that the physical action of doing it is a release for me. Yeah. But they have this ability to take it in, and it really does enhance their life or change their life. And that's a crazy relationship you can have with someone when, luckily in my life, I've had opportunity to have people come up to me to say that this song helped me in this time, or, this made me feel this way. And when you realize that this catharsis can also help other people, it's a very cool, powerful thing.
Yeah, totally, dude. You just touched on it then a little bit, Tommy, about, you're a Hamilton boy, born and bred, of course. I am, yeah. And you've played gigs in all sorts of countries, to the Caribbean, to Ontario, to wherever. All over, so as someone who's now come back and rooted back more to Hamilton a little bit more recently, again on Tones of the Hammer, we're all about talking about the state of things in Hamilton, Toronto, sort of thing. Yeah. And I know that quite a lot of the time I see on Facebook, you're always asking what's happening music-wise in Hamilton. Is there anything going off? So how, as somebody who's been through the whole process of Hamilton in the good days, bad days, wherever the days are now, what do you think's missing? How is Hamilton these days for gigs? What's missing?
Well, it's funny because Hamilton, this whole thing, Music City. And I think it's Matty Leon, if you know Matty. I don't know him well, but he wrote a song recently, and he says, it's like Music City isn't so musical to me, or something like that. And he's taking pop shots at like tribute bands and stuff, because their tribute bands are huge and everything, cover bands and all that stuff. But he has a point, because when I was growing up in Hamilton, 7 nights a week, there were bands playing.
Yeah.
There was bands playing 7 nights a week. Every night of the week, you could go out and find a good band playing somewhere. Even a shit band, but a band was playing somewhere. And more often than not, multiple places.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, COVID obviously affected that brutally. Still, a lot of us are still recovering from COVID, from financially and just mentally, and the whole idea of like wherever we stood on all that shit. It divided society, and it caused such a disruption.
Totally, yeah. People just don't trust people anymore.
No, and it caused a huge disruption in everyone's lives. I still don't feel the same back here, right? But it killed music. Yeah. It absolutely fucking killed it. And then now, when before we had great musicians, like I said, every big band had somebody from Hamilton. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now we have this influx of artists and musicians, and there's way less music happening.
Yeah.
And it's so weird, because it's like, how did we have fewer musicians playing all the time? Yeah. And now we have way more musicians, and there's hardly any gigs happening. Yeah. And that was what was weird. It used to be like, you know, you go to Nashville, or you go to Memphis, or you go to these music cities, there's music every night somewhere. And there's a couple places, but it's died off completely here, the way it used to be. Yeah. And it's, you know, kudos to the places that have kept going. Yeah. But it's been weird.
And do you think that is due to venues closing down? Is it because, again, asking previous guests on as well, they say that there's still, you know, people still have an appetite to go out and watch live music and discover new music. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So is it a case of just the lack of venues? Do you think? Or?
I think it's a lack of venues, and like it used to be bars that would have bands every night, right? And they're the venues for original music, and the venues, like the better venues, you know, like that, you know, for the Casbar. Now there's you know, there's Mills Hardware, or there's what's it called? Tim Postek's place down, Bridgeworks, like places like that, or then even, you know, Cops or the Studio Theater or any of that. Those are awesome, but there were way more places willing to have bands, whereas DJ culture, hip hop culture, and I'm not shitting on it, but I mean, I don't come from it. Yeah. So all I can say is that people are way more interested in that. Right. They'd way more have a dinner and have a DJ or something chill and have a band rocking out there. Yeah. Whereas before, people wanted to see bands. They wanted to be out and seeing bands, and there was bands playing all over. Funk bands, rock bands, you know, chill bands, all this kind of stuff. And there's been a huge change in society, and a huge influx of people from Toronto and people that like a little more chic and hip kind of places that don't have. There's a place in Hamilton, Capitol Bar, I know, they're doing a cool thing that used to be more common in Hamilton. Yeah, you see more in Hamilton, but a lot of places.
Yeah, I've seen that with the Capitol Bar. Yeah, it looks like I've not checked it out yet, but it seems.
I've only been there. I've only been there once, but like the Cat and Fiddle or the Flamingo used to be there, but there was. Hess Village alone had like 7 places that had bands all the time. Yeah. So you could just go out every night, any night, and see people. And some nights were slower. But then there was like bands like Freedom Train, if you know them, they're a really well-known band here. They were played Tuesday nights downtown. Tuesday nights, and it was fucking rocking. Yeah. And none of that exists anymore. Yeah. You know, Friday, Saturday night, you'll get some bands, maybe the odd person out. It's funny, I just saw today, what day is it? It was a Friday day, but there's a guy playing across the street.
Of course.
But you don't see it anymore. Yeah. It's way less. And you know, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't know. I just I'm so curious, especially starting doing Tones of the Hammer. There's just less music happening. Yeah. With way more artists.
Trying to get to the bottom of it, of why because I hear that complaint quite a lot, of just like, you know, people seem to be crying out for it, but there's just I don't know if it's venues that have got I'd never owned a bar or anything like that. I don't know what the overheads are involved with that sort of stuff.
Everything's more expensive too. Yeah. And we've been musicians and bars around here been getting paid the same $100 for 30 years. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. And then even after COVID, after they killed all of us musicians, then they wanted to bring us back and pay us less to go into play. It was like, are you kidding me?
We always get hit, man.
We always get hit.
Musicians always get hit.
But I think there's been in Hamilton, as I can speak for it, there's been a total change. You know, the gentrification of Hamilton, the changing of Hamilton, it has become a bit more bougie. It has become
people can't afford to live in Toronto, right?
Yeah, and like it has become more bougie. It has become more, you know, it's just less of rock and roll culture that used to be here, and people were you know, more turned on by live bands, more outside. They were out more. People stay in more, especially young. You know, they stay in more. People don't have money. They don't have. It's a different time. So there's a lot of variables that have gone into it, I'm sure. But it sure as hell feels like an oddity that there's so many more musicians here and so much less music happening.
Yeah, strange. So in terms of songwriting then, Tommy, for you yourself, who is, I know you said in your early career and stuff, you know, you found it hard to kind of fit into like a pigeonhole and stuff, but who would you say is your influences? Who's the guys that you, whose music do you love? And
it's been all over the place, but I mean, definitely Sam Cooke, definitely Van Morrison. I can only speak to where I'm at now. So in my life, because I could name off 1,000.
Totally, yeah.
But like earlier, definitely Radiohead, definitely Jeff Buckley, definitely Travis, David Gray, that kind of world. Paul Simon, James Taylor, that. But more so in my life now, it's been guys like Ray LaMontagne, Chris Stapleton. And the thing is, people don't know Chris Stapleton now, but Chris Stapleton was a writer for
100%
ever
with the steel drivers and all that sort of stuff.
So people don't realize that, he's Chris Stapleton huge now, but he's been around for a long time. Yeah. And so people...
He was a Tomi Swick. You know, he was a Tomi Swick, man. That's, the big things are coming, dude.
We'll see. We'll see. But like guys like that, guys like Nathaniel Rateliff I really like. It's weird now. I listen to a lot of old instrumental stuff. Yeah. So I listen to like Pete Drake on pedal steel and people like that, and you know, older stuff I find I listen to a lot. But there's always cool new stuff. I mean, if you ever heard that band Khruangbin, they're really cool. They're an instrumental band, super cool.
Oh, nice.
So it's weird, but yeah, I guess where I'm at right now in my life, it's more of the roots people. So you know, from the core, Paul Simon, James Taylor, Paul McCartney, and then people like Ray LaMontagne, Sam Cooke, Otis Redding, Van Morrison. That's kind of, I'm feeling a lot of that stuff now.
So is this what we can expect from the new album that's coming soon?
Yeah, so the new record's going to be called Rundown Love, and it's a mix of kind of like roots, soul. Yeah. I mean, we got horns on a record for the first time.
Yeah.
And, stuff like that. And it's got kind of roots, soul, rock, country. It's a mix in all that kind of stuff. So it's still kind of, you know, slips in between the cracks of a few things. It's not anything particular, but it's shades of all of those.
Right, yeah. And where did the inspiration for the songs on this record come from? Because I know you mentioned you've got your beautiful cabin up in Northern Ontario, right?
Yeah.
So is it a lot of it just sat down and just processing things and coming out?
These songs kind of come from different eras, different times, because it's a collection of stuff, and I wasn't intending to do a record, and so the themes, and it seems to be love songs, whether they were upbeat or down, but a lot of, you know, like I said, it's so funny for my personality and then what I write. It's just so weird. It's like a split personality. It's so weird. But a lot of love songs, a lot of in your head. You know, most of my stuff. Joel Gunther, who I play with all the time, phenomenal musician.
Great guitarist.
He put it out. Great singer, great writer. He said to me, he's like, you know what your songs are like? He goes, your songs are all like conversations. And I thought about it, and they're all like conversations I'm having with either the person I'm thinking of or the idea that I'm thinking of.
And that's what really connects with people, is that conversational. And I think that's in every art form, because I think even if you see a comedian, I think like a conversational, even kind of comedian or anything, it hits with people more, right? Because it's what people, you know, relate to.
It's a super introspective, and it's super me. It's super. I don't. And I've said this before, but like guys like Paul Simon, who are songwriters who are right about anything. They're not super introspective all the time. He'll walk down the street and see a girl in a red hat and see a yellow balloon and see a guy riding a bike and be like, oh, and put that together and just use that imagery. It's all in my head. It's all, everything I write is coming from thoughts. Yeah. Like weird, whatever I'm thinking of at whatever time.
So not necessarily autobiographical all the time.
It's not always autobiographical, and it's not always literal. Yeah. A lot of times I'm writing and it sounds like I'm talking about a relationship with a girl or something like that, but I'm really just talking about life or something like that. Yeah. And I wrote a song recently where friends of mine, I was explaining to them, they're like, there's no fucking way I thought that song was about that. And I was like, no, this is what it's about. And they thought it was about me coming home to someone I love. And I was like, no, it's about going home to the creator. And would they recognize me when I get home? And they were like, I never would have thought that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't even know what a song's about. Yeah. But I realized most of them had a theme about love or about like love lost or about that kind of stuff. And so there's a song on the record called Run Down Love. And so I called it Run Down Love based on that. So it's kind of a mix of songs just about kind of love and loss and life, really, you know, just it's like everything, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, they came from different times in my life because it's been like 7 years since I did a record.
Yeah,
so they're from different relationships, different situations, and compiled into what this record's gonna be.
Nice. Well, I'm stoked to hear it. Do we have like a release date set or anything yet?
Nothing yet. I still have to finish the vocals.
Gotcha.
Because of my throat. So
of course.
I got to see if I have to have surgery again. And then, like I said, you heard a bunch of them.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
So you heard a lot of the demos. So you know, it's like like I said, it runs the gamut from that Van Morrison, Chris Stapleton to kind of like singer songwriter folk.
Yeah,
stuff,
soulful roots is the kind of vibe I got from
that's
it.
That's what I would say. Yeah, soul.
Yeah,
kind of that world. So that's where I'm at, and just waiting to get it done, and then on to the next process. But I had some good talks this week with some industry people, and I'm willing to dip my toes back in the pool a little bit. And I have no delusions of grandeur. I've been doing this a long time.
Hey, you never know what's around the corner, dude.
Well,
right?
For me, it's like it's all. I've been able to live my life at 44 years old now. Most of my life playing music, and I've had serious ups and I've had serious downs, and I feel successful in music. And I know some people don't feel that way unless they're making millions of dollars or in front of tons of people. But I don't feel that way. I when I sit on my porch up north and I play a song that I feel is a good song, I feel successful, and I feel fulfilled in the idea that I forget that I'm a musician often when I'm up there or when I'm doing other things. But then when I sit down and I play it, I'm like, oh, you know what? I feel like I can do this, and that's why I'm taking another stab at doing a record, and why hopefully with this publishing stuff that. Once it's done, I can get a few things in sync, or maybe get it to other artists, or start playing festivals again, and just getting back on the horse a little bit.
Yeah, and you got some shows coming up right in the summer and stuff.
Yeah, I've got tons of private stuff. I'm doing private shows all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm doing Boots in the Creek. With our buddy Marconi here.
Yeah, just in Stony Creek.
So they just informed me that I'm going to be headlining the Friday night.
Yeah.
Which is we're not a hardcore country band, but we are roots, and we will do some country stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm super pumped. It's gonna be my first original show in this area in a long time, and I got a great band to do it with. And I just look forward to getting out there and stretching the old legs again.
Good, yeah. It sounds like the wheels are getting back turning.
They're definitely turning, and
and on your own terms this time. It seems
totally.
Like,
the last record was more as well, and this one, but this one, it's just like I said. I don't have any delusions of grandeur with it. I just know that there's some good songs. Some good songwriting, I think, on it, and great musicians to play with, and the opportunities that I'll get. Hopefully, I get some good shows, and I would love to get on some good festival stuff, and just play the fun shows I want to do. Get that out of music that I want.
Yeah,
and if money comes along, all this and money too. We'll see.
Yeah, I know, man. That'd be the dream, right?
That's it,
Yeah, well, I have every faith in it, Tommy, for sure.
I appreciate
so, as
it.
a guy that's we talked about lessons learned and all that sort of stuff. So, for talking to any like young pups like myself and stuff that just finding their careers and their place in music and stuff, what's if someone is starting out today as a songwriter and stuff, what is your, because I think especially even in these days, I know we talked about you can independently release your music, and with the power of TikTok and stuff,
of course,
you can learn, you can do so much, but it's all, even still, people strive for that kind of record label is the be all and end all, and you had the balls to turn around and say, this is not for me, sort of thing. So what advice would you give to, somebody who's a songwriter now that's just getting going with things and maybe he's getting a bit of traction?
I think be open to anything, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no one way to do anything now. The idea of major record labels and stuff, that it's not dead, but it's completely different than the idea of it that we still have carrying from the old days.
Yeah.
Now there's so many ways. There's, they say lots of ways to skin a cat, or lots of ways, layers to an onion.
Yeah.
You have so many opportunities, there's so many outlets to get out there. You have so much competition.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So I always believe in the in a time where people can get famous for talking about sucking dicks or whatever they fucking do, fucking juggling around or whatever they do.
Yeah.
I still believe that the cream rises to the top.
That's a great way to put it.
And I think if you believe in yourself and you believe, you're doing good work, it depends. If your idea of success is being Taylor Swift and the biggest artist on the planet, it might be tough to get there. But if your idea is to live a life making music, making art, and paying your bills and hopefully getting some great opportunities, it's completely feasible. You just got to stick with it and believe in yourself enough to put yourself out there.
Yeah, 100%. And is there any lessons that you'd say not to do along the way that you'd done or something?
Don't follow a lot of the shit I did.
Yeah.
No, but take care of your instrument. If you're a singer, take care of your voice. I didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
If you're trying to meet people in the industry, maybe don't be a hothead.
Yeah.
There's lots less. You attract more bees with honey. I've learned that as I'm getting older. I'm still not great at it.
Yeah.
But approaching people who are interested in your work and finding people who give a shit about what you're doing, that's what it is. Getting a solid community around you and people that give a shit. That's probably the best way to get a foot up in any of this.
Yeah, 100%.
And appreciating them.
Yeah, 100%. Great advice. Well, okay, before we wrap things up, Tommy, I've got to ask about I don't know, there must be some cool story that you can share with me.
There's lots. It depends what kind you want.
Well, for one, one of the amazing things, especially as a Brit as well, is how did how was your time recording the tune with Julian Lennon, somebody like that?
That was crazy. That came about. It was my last night in England while finishing my record with Chris Potter, and I was in bed with my girlfriend at the time. And I got a phone call at 3 a.m, and it was Ron Sexsmith, who worked for Warner at this point, who had produced my first record, and we were kind of talking about working on some stuff on the second record. He goes, "Hey, I just had a meeting in New York, and would you ever want to write with Julian Lennon?" And I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Yeah, of course." He goes, "Okay, I'm going to set something up." And so I had already recorded that song, just December Sky. I'd already written it and recorded it. And the funny thing was, as I was doing it, I was like, I said this earlier, I love John Lennon, but I'm a McCartney guy.
Yeah.
But as I was writing the song, I was like, man, this is kind of got a John Lennon kind of vibe. And then I was already like, this is crazy. So as it was leading up to me going to New York to write with him, he had heard that song. And they were like, why don't you guys do a duet on that song? It's already written and it's perfect for you guys to do. And so I was like, holy shit, yeah, of course. Yeah. So I went down there and I spent the 30th anniversary of John's death in New York with Julian, recording at a studio that Paul Simon worked in and stuff. It was wild, man. It was crazy. And we had a good time in the studio, and some real chilling times in the studio where he sounded so much like John. And you could tell people in the room were like, holy shit. And at one point he goes, that sounds a lot like Dad, that.
Yeah.
And we were like,
great accent.
We're like, what the fuck? My Scouser accent's terrible. I can do a Scottish accent, but when he said that, everyone in the room was like, Jesus, this is the 30th anniversary of John's death there, right? And so then he, and when I met him, I'm nervous, and I was actually really sick for that session. Thankfully, most of my part was already done. But I walk in and I go to shake his hand, and he slaps my hand away and hugs me. He's like, it's so great to meet you. He's like, I wish I wrote the song. It's beautiful work. And I was like, this is a trip,
Yeah.
And I was telling myself the whole time, don't be a nerd. Don't say anything about the Beatles. Don't fucking do anything like that. And it was crazy because we go out, and every place we go out now, this is crazy. This is it's like being out with a prince or something. Yeah. Because every place we went, the doors flew open and it was party. It was on,
Yeah.
So we went all over New York, all of his crazy bars, all his private places. And he had a professional boxer, was his bouncer with him.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
This big English boxer. And I'm a big dude. And so he was like, just keep an eye on me. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Because you got to think, there's copycat people who would like to attach their name by going after him, right?
Yeah.
So I understood his worry, and then it was a wild fun party, and then there was a guy who we went to the washroom, and this guy was he's like, Tommy, watch me. This guy's checking me out, and I could tell something's weird. So I'm watching the guy, and I've got his back, and I kind of keep the guy away, and we go back to our booth, and doesn't the guy jump through was like holes in the near the booth, jumped through trying to get to us.
Yeah.
It was so weird, man. But yeah, and it broke. It got cleaned up, and we continued on for the night. And that was definitely. I've had a lot of great experiences. That was one of the really cool, surreal ones in music,
I can
for
imagine.
sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I even saw a video recently with even like Paul McCartney. Maybe Julian's experience is totally different as like a Prince of the Beatles sort of thing. But like even Paul says, he's just a guy from like Liverpool still in his head, you know.
Totally,
thing.
man.
So,
Totally.
And I imagine that passes down a little bit.
I would share some of the conversations we had because I didn't mention the Beatles to him, but as the night went on and every place was playing remixes of the Beatles and everything, he started talking to me about the Beatles. I'll keep those conversations for myself.
Yes,
but he said some crazy shit. It was like, as a Beatles fan, I was like, this is mental.
The dream, to hear this stuff. Yeah,
you know, having firsthand, you know, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was lots of stuff like that. You know, meeting Paul Simon, meeting Robert Plant. You know, getting to play with great Canadian musicians, getting to play with guys from Blue Rodeo and Ron Sexsmith and Big Wreck and all these bands that I looked up to, becoming friends with guys from Mother Earth. I've been very, very lucky. And, you know, I'm lucky to still be doing it. I'm lucky to be even able to talk. I'm going on possibly my third vocal surgery.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lots of great stories and, you know, some good rough and tumble moments and some mistakes I made, but I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good.
It's been a ride, and there's more to come. That's what's exciting, dude.
There's more to come.
That's what's exciting. I'm stoked to come. Tommy, thanks so much for coming down,
pleasure,
man. It's been
honestly.
so cool.
This guy's a great addition to Hamilton. I love it.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here with you guys for sure. And Tommy, where can we find you on socials? I know we're not big on the socials. But
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Tomi Swick. There's a Tomi Swick and there's Tomi Swick 2.
Yeah.
That's not me. Tomi Swick 2 is a label made it for me, and I don't use it.
Right.
So
okay.
I get messages on it all the time, and it's still connected to my account.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. I try to get rid of it. I can't. For some reason. So Tomi Swick, just me.
Just Tomi Swick.
Yeah.
It'll be in big white letters somewhere.
TomiSwick, and then I'm on Facebook. I have a TikTok account. I've never been on it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much Instagram, Facebook. I had a website. I don't even do it anymore. I don't even deal with it.
I checked it the other day. It's still, you know, it's still rocking.
I don't even know what's there. So I honestly, that's you know, another tip is you might need a manager if you're retarded. So I can say that if you're an idiot like I am, you probably need some wranglers to help you figure out the business side of your career, because I'm terrible at it. So yeah, with that community of people supporting you, maybe a manager or an agent, some people to help you figure out those things, because I am not good at it.
Yeah, 100%. Check Tommy out on all socials. Go listen to it on Spotify and Apple Music, all the usual stuff. Tomi Swick. Tommy, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already to Tones of the Hammer, where we talk to different guests from Hamilton, the surrounding areas, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.